Welcome back to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization, where I explore the incomprehensible in our never normal world. I'm Ira Wolfe. Today's episode is a little different, and I think you're going to love it. What you're about to hear is an AI-assisted deep dive. It's built from my own research, my white papers, and over 25 years of data on the future of work. I handed all of that to an AI research tool, and what came back is honestly one of the clearest conversations I've heard on this topic. In these deep dive episodes, my voice steps back a bit, but the ideas, those are very much mine. Think of it as my research, just with a different narrator. And I genuinely like to hear how you feel about the topic, the deep dive, and the future. Challenges and collaborations are welcome. Let's dive in.
You know, if you look at the headlines right now about getting into college, you would honestly think we are in this absolute golden age of higher education.
Oh, totally. I mean, the application numbers at elite universities are just skyrocketing.
Right. We're talking record highs year after year with acceptance rates dropping into the single digits. It looks like an industry that is booming.
It does, but it creates this massive illusion of scarcity when all the media coverage focuses on this tiny fraction of hyper-selective schools.
It feels like everyone in the country is just fighting for a golden ticket to a thriving system.
Exactly. But if you zoom out just a little bit from those Ivy League headlines, there is this staggering contradiction.
Because while those elite schools are drowning in applications, higher education as a whole is actually facing what demographic experts are calling a cliff, like a looming structural death spiral.
Yeah, it is a profound disconnect. I mean, the perception of intense competition at the very top is completely masking a reality of physical and financial collapse everywhere else.
We're basically looking at an infrastructure built for a population peak that just isn't coming back.
No, it's not.
And so that brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are going to figure out what is actually happening beneath the surface of this crisis.
Right, because there is so much more to this than just empty dorm rooms.
Exactly. So we are pulling from an incredibly insightful article in The Atlantic by Jeffrey Salingo, which details the terrifying physical and financial collapse of regional colleges.
And we are pairing that data with a really fascinating LinkedIn article and a comprehensive white paper by the futurist Ira S. Wolfe.
So the goal here is to unpack this dual crisis, not just the literal disappearance of local college campuses, but the fundamental mismatch between what our, century-old education system teaches and what the modern AI-driven workforce actually demands.
Yeah. Ultimately, we want to figure out how you can navigate an economy that suddenly values adaptability over a prestigious degree.
It's such a critical conversation to have right now.
It really is. Because when you connect these massive demographic shifts to the everyday reality of hiring, managing, or even just planning a career path, it forces a complete reevaluation.
A reevaluation of what we even consider career readiness. So let's start with the physical reality of the crisis. Before we can even talk about the curriculum or what is being taught inside the buildings, we have to look at the fact that there are simply fewer people to sit in the desks.
Which is a reality a lot of institutions are just trying to ignore.
I mean, I always assumed colleges were these untouchable permanent institutions. But looking at these birth rate pipelines from the sources, it paints a really grim picture.
It really does.
What exactly is the timeline of this demographic cliff? Like, when does it hit?
Well, the cliff is essentially a mathematical certainty that enrollment directors have been dreading for over a decade now. According to the data we're looking at, the number of U.S. high school graduates actually peaked last year.
It peaked last year, so we are already on the way down.
We are. And this isn't just a temporary dip caused by a brief economic downturn or something. The data shows it will steadily and severely fall through at least 2041.
Wow. So the customer base is just fundamentally shrinking.
Considerably. I mean, the United States currently operates about 4,000 colleges.
Okay.
And right now, according to a Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia study cited in the research, about 60 of those institutions are closing on average every single year.
60 colleges a year.
Every year. And researchers warn that if the bottom really falls out of the enrollment numbers like projected, that closure rate could easily double.
That scale is just wild to think about. And it's not hitting the country evenly, is it?
Not at all.
Because I read in Salingo's piece that if you overlay a map of physical colleges with the projections for high school graduates, the geography is just a total mess.
It's a massive geographic mismatch. You have to remember the Northeast and the Midwest have the highest historical density of college campuses.
Right, mostly a legacy of the Industrial Revolution and post-war booms, right?
Exactly. But those exact regions are projected to see some of the most severe declines in high school graduates.
Oh, man. So the schools are where the kids aren't.
Precisely. Overall, 38 states are projected to see a drop in graduates over this period. Only 10 states, which are mostly located in the South, are going to see any growth at all.
Which brings up this concept from the higher education researcher Nicholas Hillman that absolutely blew my mind.
Oh, the zombie malls, yes.
Yes. He studies the geography of higher ed, and he argues that these struggling colleges are turning into zombie malls. It's such a visceral analogy.
It really is, and it captures the mechanism of the decline perfectly.
Right, because think about a dying local mall in your town. The anchor store leaves, say, the Sears or the Macy's.
Right.
Because the anchor store is gone, the overall foot traffic drops. Because the foot traffic drops, the food court is forced to close, which drops foot traffic even further.
Until there's nothing left but a couple of struggling kiosks and empty hallways.
Exactly. And Hillman says colleges are trapped in that exact same doom loop. They face a budget shortfall, so they cut a few niche majors.
Which means they lose the prospective students who wanted those specific majors.
Right, which causes another budget shortfall. So then they cut student services and more majors. And the cycle just accelerates.
And, the economic fallout of that doom loop is absolutely devastating for the surrounding community.
Yeah, this is why anyone living near a regional college really needs to pay attention, right?
Totally. Unlike a retail chain or a corporate headquarters, a university is geographically fixed. A massive campus in rural Pennsylvania can't just pack up and relocate to a booming suburb in Texas.
Right. They are stuck where they were built 100 years ago.
Exactly. And in many of these towns, the college is the primary employer. It buys the local services, it funds the local tax base.
So when a regional campus dies, it takes a massive chunk of the local economy and regional opportunity down with it.
It leaves a huge crater.
So, if the math is so grim across the board, how are we simultaneously seeing those headlines about elite universities turning away record numbers of straight-A students?
It's a great question.
Because the math doesn't seem to add up. We are essentially watching a tale of two completely different educational realities.
That's exactly what it is. American higher education has fundamentally cleaved into two separate ecosystems.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, you have the national market, which primarily serves high-achieving, heavily resourced, and typically affluent students. And then you have the regional market.
And the regional market serves mostly middle and lower income students, right?
Yes, students who tend to stay within 50 miles of their childhood homes.
And the national market is the one that's thriving.
Thriving might be an understatement, honestly. Applications to the top 60 selective schools.
The ones that accept fewer than 20% of applicants.
Right, those ones. Their applications have exploded. They went from nearly 800,000 applications 2 decades ago to over 2.35 million today.
But wait, if the overall pool of teenagers is shrinking, how are applications to elite schools tripling?
Because the total pool of top-tier students hasn't grown. Their application behavior has changed.
Oh, interesting. How so?
We have seen a massive nationalization of college brands. Historically, a top student in Ohio might have just applied to the best school in Ohio. Now, distance feels completely different.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
In the 1980s, going across the country meant talking to your family on a dorm payphone like once a week.
Exactly. Today, you just FaceTime them from the dining hall. Because the psychological barrier of distance has shrunk, top students from all 50 states are now applying to the exact same cluster of 60 elite national brands.
And thanks to the Common App, each student is submitting 15 applications instead of 3.
You got it. It's a volume game.
Meanwhile, the regional schools, the institutions that actually serve the vast majority of local populations, they're starving for applicants.
They really are. Salingo dropped a genuinely terrifying statistic in his Atlantic piece.
The enrollment drop.
Yes. The share of American teenagers enrolling in college immediately after high school has dropped from a high of 70% in 2016 to just 62% in 2022.
Wow. That is a staggering contraction to happen in just a 6-year window.
It is. And to understand the gravity of that, you really have to look back to the 1960s. Ohio Governor James Rhodes championed this incredible democratic vision.
Right. He wanted to put a public college campus within 30 miles of every single resident in his state.
Exactly. It was the ultimate triumph of the post-war democratization of higher education.
And what we are witnessing today is that exact process playing out in reverse. higher education is retreating from the public square.
It is at very real risk of returning to its historical status as a luxury good.
Let me push back on this for a second, though.
Sure.
Because reading through the sources, we see situations like Pennsylvania merging 6 of the schools in their state system into just 2 new institutions.
Yeah.
And Penn State is closing 7 of its Commonwealth campuses.
Right, huge physical consolidations.
Yeah. So with all the technology we have today, are kids simply looking at these physical closures and choosing to take online classes instead?
It's a fair question.
Like maybe the physical brick-and-mortar campus is just an inefficient, obsolete delivery system anyway, and they're all just logging on to Zoom.
It is a very logical hypothesis, especially post-pandemic, but the underlying data strongly refutes it. Fully online courses are simply not a viable or designable replacement for the vast majority of teenagers transitioning right out of high school.
Really? So the data doesn't support the online pivot?
Not at all. The data from the 2019 to 2020 school year showed that only about 16% of undergraduates between the ages of 15 and 23 took their degree entirely online.
Only 16%. That's way lower than I would have guessed.
Right, because online education requires a level of self-regulation and isolation that most 18-year-olds are just not prepared for.
Yeah, they want the social experience, the independence.
Exactly. So the stark reality is this. If an 18-year-old cannot physically commute to a local campus, they generally do not pivot to an online degree. They just skip college entirely.
Wow. So when the physical campus disappears, the students disappear. Physical access is literally vanishing for a huge segment of the population.
It is a massive access crisis.
But if we shift our focus from the buildings closing to what is actually happening inside the classrooms that remain, there is another crisis entirely.
Oh, absolutely. The curriculum crisis.
Right. Pew Research highlighted in the sources shows that 70% of Americans now think higher education is headed in the wrong direction.
Which is up significantly from 56% just 5 years ago.
So people aren't just losing access, they're actively souring on the product itself.
And to understand why the public is losing faith in the curriculum, we really have to rely on Ira S. Wolfe's historical analysis.
His white paper was fascinating.
It was, because he makes a brilliant point. The modern education system isn't actually broken. It is functioning exactly as it was engineered to function.
The problem is that we completely forgot what the original engineering was meant to achieve.
Exactly. We lost the instruction manual.
And this is where Wolfe brings in the history of the 1903 factory model.
Oh.
Walk us through how that started, because it completely reframed how I look at a classroom.
So, in 1903, John D. Rockefeller, the oil tycoon, established the General Education Board. He funded it with the modern equivalent of over $6 billion.
$6 billion. That is serious leverage.
It is. Now, the public relations messaging around this board was all about expanding educational access to the masses. Sounds great, right?
Of course.
But the internal documented philosophy of the board's architects was incredibly explicit. They were trying to solve an economic problem. They needed to produce a massive, compliant, and highly predictable workforce.
A workforce suited to man the assembly lines of the emerging industrial economy.
Exactly.
They literally needed factory workers who wouldn't question the assembly line.
And to get them, they systematically dismantled classical education.
Because classical education was heavily focused on logic, rhetoric, debate, independent reasoning.
Right. Things you don't want someone doing on an assembly line. So they replaced that with behavioral conditioning. Think about the structure of a traditional high school even today. It is a literal factory model.
Wow, yeah. Rigidly controlled schedules.
Repetitive drills, bells that ring to signal the sudden end of your, thinking period so you can move to the next station.
It was intentionally designed to engineer out natural human curiosity and replace it with strict compliance to authority.
Yes.
And the craziest part is how well it worked. Wolfe points out that self-employment in America stood at roughly 40% back in 1900.
Right, lots of farmers, small shop owners, tradesmen.
But by the mid-century, after this standardized education model fully took hold of the culture, self-employment had plummeted to below 10%.
It's wild. We successfully channeled an entire nation of independent entrepreneurial thinkers into standardized wage employment.
It was a wildly successful piece of social engineering.
It really was. So when corporate leaders complain today about an education to employment gap, they are misdiagnosing the root cause. The education system is functioning perfectly for a 20th century industrial civilization.
The problem is that civilization doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly, it's gone.
We are essentially trying to run a 1903 industrial software patch on a 2026 AI-driven workforce. Of course, this system is crashing, the hardware is completely changed, but we are still forcing kids to run the legacy code.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it, and this deeply echoes the prophetic warning of the futurist Alvin Toffler.
Oh, right. What did he say again?
Decades ago, he argued that the defining skill of the future workforce wouldn't be rote memorization or compliance. It would be the fluid ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Unlearning. That is such a difficult concept to grasp when you have spent 16 years of your life being strictly graded on your ability to memorize the one right answer.
It goes against every instinct ingrained by the traditional system. The factory model actively punishes you for letting go of established protocols, but navigating an automated economy absolutely demands it.
Which brings us to the core of the workforce dilemma. If the 1903 factory model actively punishes the exact flexibility the AI economy demands, it begs the question, what skills do we actually need now?
Right. What actually makes someone employable today?
Because if I had to guess, based on the constant barrage of tech headlines, I would assume a major workforce study like McKinsey's would prioritize hard technical skills: coding, prompt engineering, advanced data analysis.
You'd think so.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, you would be in the majority for guessing that, but the data paints a profoundly different picture. The sources dive into this massive McKinsey Delta study.
Okay, what did they look at?
They surveyed 18,000 workers across 15 different countries to find out which specific skills actually predict higher employment rates, higher income, and greater job satisfaction in an increasingly automated world.
18,000 people is a massive sample size. And the hard tech skills didn't top the list.
They didn't even come close. The absolute top predictors were adaptability, the ability to cope with deep uncertainty, self-confidence, courage, and risk-taking.
Wow.
Yeah, McKinsey categorized this cluster of traits under the umbrella of entrepreneurship, not meaning the ability to start a tech company, but entrepreneurship as a foundational competency of self-leadership.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
But surely pursuing a master's degree or advanced collegiate training helps build that professional confidence and adaptability.
Prepare yourself, because this is the bombshell finding from the McKinsey study.
Okay, hit me.
They found absolutely zero correlation between those vital survival skills and a person's level of formal education. Let that sink in.
Zero correlation. Wait, really?
Zero. You cannot credential your way into adaptability. Spending more years in a classroom does not reliably develop courage or comfort with ambiguity.
Oh my God.
In fact, for the specific trait of humility, the study found that having more formal education was actually associated with lower proficiency.
I shouldn't laugh, but it makes total sense.
It really does when you think about it.
You spend your entire young adult life being graded on a curve, repeatedly told you have the right answers, and rewarded for outperforming your peers. You are literally conditioned to believe you are the smartest person in the room. No wonder humility drops.
It is a structural byproduct of the grading system. And this lack of adaptability, this overconfidence and obsolete knowledge, is creating a terrifying bottleneck in the labor market.
I saw the stat from the Burning Glass Institute in the sources. It's bleak.
It's very bleak. They project that by 2034, we could see a massive surplus of 7 to 11 million college graduates relative to the actual number of jobs that require a degree.
Because AI is hollowing out the rote, repetitive tasks that entry-level graduates used to perform.
Exactly. The jobs that survive require judgment, creative problem solving, and the ability to navigate incredibly ambiguous situations.
Algorithms cannot do that yet. But neither can a graduate whose entire mental model relies on following a provided rubric.
You hit the nail on the head.
So if you're listening to this on your commute and you manage a team of people, or maybe you're trying to plan your own mid-career pivot, this has to sound incredibly daunting.
It's a lot to process.
How do we actually adapt to this? Like, are universities seeing this McKinsey data and pivoting? Can't we just get these institutions to update their courses, or at least make the degrees cheaper since the ROI is dropping?
Well, universities are absolutely panicking, but they are generally pulling the wrong levers.
What are they doing instead?
We are currently witnessing what admissions experts refer to as an affordability arms race. They are trying to solve a relevance problem with a pricing strategy.
The details on this in the sources were mind-blowing, especially regarding the business schools.
Oh, the irony with the business schools is palpable. The very institutions tasked with teaching supply, demand, and market forecasting completely failed to see their own demand cliff approaching. Business schools are offering unprecedented discounts of 38 to 50% on their MBAs and specialized master's programs.
50% off an MBA.
Yes. Nearly half of all incoming management students are receiving so-called merit scholarships just to get them in the door.
So they're treating higher education degrees like a struggling software product, slashing the monthly subscription price just to maintain their user base and market share.
That is an incredibly accurate comparison, and it extends far beyond the regional business schools. Elite institutions with massive endowments, Harvard, Yale, MIT, Penn.
What are they doing?
They are now offering completely free tuition to families earning under $200,000 a year. Over 100 universities are engaging in similar pricing wars.
Just competing fiercely to fill seats in a mathematically shrinking market.
Exactly.
But there is a massive structural catch to all this discounting, isn't there? The credentials being put on sale or even given away for free, but the pedagogy inside the building hasn't changed.
And that is the absolute danger of the affordability arms race. It creates a false sense of security for the student.
Right, because free tuition for an obsolete curriculum still leaves you entirely unprepared for an AI disruption.
Exactly. Getting a heavily discounted MBA does not magically increase your adaptability quotient.
Even these one-year, hyper-specialized AI certificates that universities are rushing to market feel fundamentally flawed.
They are, because they teach you how to use today's specific software tools, which will inevitably be obsolete in 18 months.
So price is not the variable that matters in the future economy. The cognitive flexibility developed inside the human mind is the only variable that matters. If traditional discounted degrees aren't the answer, what actually works?
Wolfe argues that the solution is a radical shift toward teaching the entrepreneurial mindset.
Now, he doesn't mean a business administration course where you write a 40-page business plan and pretend to pitch on a stage.
No, not at all. He means training the brain to build its AQ, its adaptability quotient.
What does training for AQ actually look like in practice? Like, how do you teach adaptability?
You teach it by forcing students to build a tolerance for ambiguity. Real entrepreneurs have to make high-stakes decisions every single day with incomplete, often contradictory information.
Right.
And then they have to adjust on the fly. It requires iterative thinking. Wolfe heavily references Tom Peters' management classic, In Search of Excellence, specifically highlighting the concept of ready, fire, aim.
Ready, fire, aim. I love that.
It's great, right? The goal is to stop worshiping the illusion of a perfect, highly researched plan. You have to start testing, learning, and adapting in real time.
I love that philosophy because it completely reframes our relationship with failure.
How so?
Well, think about the 1903 factory model we talked about. In that system, failure is like compiling an error in an old piece of software code.
Right. The program just stops running.
Exactly. You get an F on the test, the semester is over, and you are permanently labeled as deficient.
It's a dead end.
But the entrepreneurial mindset treats failure much more like modern machine learning. Every error, every wrong guess isn't an endpoint. It just adjusts the weights and biases for a slightly better outcome on the next run.
Yes. It is productive failure.
Productive failure. That's a great thing.
If you can internalize that build, measure, learn cycle, you fundamentally alter your relationship with risk. You stop treating a blown project or a career setback as a personal tragedy, and you start analyzing it as highly actionable data.
Like, okay, that specific approach didn't yield the result. What new variable did I learn, and what prototype do I test tomorrow?
Exactly. That is what true resilience looks like in action.
And if you are in a position of leadership, whether you are hiring a new team, managing a department, or raising kids, you have to actively screen for this mindset.
You really do. You cannot claim to want adaptability, but continue to reward rigid compliance to the old rules.
You can't beg your team for innovative, out-of-the-box thinking and then penalize them during their performance review because their very first iteration wasn't flawless.
It demands a total operational shift. I mean, think about how we conduct job interviews.
No, that's a great point. How should they change?
Well, instead of obsessing over a candidate's GPA or running them through a standard checklist of technical proficiencies, we need to be asking questions that reveal their AQ.
Like what?
Like, walk me through a time your strategic plan completely fell apart and explain the exact steps you took next. Or tell me about a complex concept you had to teach yourself from scratch in the last 12 months outside of any formal training program.
Oh, I like that. You have to screen for the willingness to unlearn.
Exactly. Because as Wolfe notes in his white paper, we have spent a century preparing students for highly predictable destinations in a world that has completely stopped offering them.
The career path was never quite as linear or predictable as the institutions pretended it was it?
No, it wasn't. We just managed to uphold the illusion for a long time.
But now, with the demographic realities and the AI revolution, the mask is completely off. The future economy heavily favors those who can generate value in circumstances they absolutely did not anticipate.
Exactly right.
So let's synthesize this incredible ground we have covered today.
Let's do it.
We started by looking at the unavoidable math of the demographic cliff, the geographic collapse of local colleges, and the devastating economic doom loop of zombie malls that are leaving massive portions of the country without physical educational access.
And from there, we examined the ghost in the machine, how the 1903 industrial education model, designed to produce compliant rule followers, is fundamentally clashing with the chaotic realities of a 2026 AI economy.
Right. And finally, we unpack the McKinsey data, which proves that the true currency of the future isn't a heavily discounted master's degree.
No, it's not.
The true currency is the adaptability quotient, the entrepreneurial mindset.
It is a massive paradigm shift. And, when you view all of these sources together, it raises a very important and frankly uncomfortable question regarding this concept of productive failure we just discussed.
Oh, really? What's the question?
Well, in a culture and an educational system that is still entirely obsessed with uncovering the one right answer and maintaining a flawless, unblemished academic record.
Right.
Are we accidentally training ourselves and the next generation to be perfectly terrified of the exact type of failures required to survive tomorrow's economy?
Oh, wow.
Because if true adaptability requires a willingness to make mistakes, but our legacy systems punish those mistakes above all else, how do we begin to intentionally break that cycle?
Are we training ourselves to be terrified of the only mechanism that can actually save us? That is a profound, essential thought to walk away with.
It's something we all need to sit with.
Definitely. Thank you to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the sources today. We highly encourage you to examine your own routines and leadership styles this week. Look for places where you can start injecting just a little bit more productive uncertainty into your life.
Break away from the legacy code.
Embrace the productive failure. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I welcome your feedback, your challenges, and your shares with your connections, colleagues, and clients. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And remember, don't let the shift hit your plan.